Cholesterol. It's a word we hear all the time, right? And usually, it's not in a good way. But you know, this molecule is so much more than just a simple villain. It's an essential, complex, and honestly, a pretty fascinating character in our body's story. So let's dive in and follow cholesterol's journey, from the moment it's created to its ultimate fate.
I just love this poetic take on cholesterol. It really nails the paradox, doesn't it? On one hand, it's absolutely vital for life. It gives our cells structure, helps create hormones. But on the other, it's tied to some really serious health problems. So, is it a friend or a foe? Well, as we're about to see, it really is all about balance.
So to get to the bottom of this, we're going to follow a 5-part journey. We'll start with the cholesterol conundrum itself, then look at how it's actually built, see how that whole process is controlled, understand how it gets around the body, and finally find out what happens to it at the end of its life.
Okay, let's jump right into part 1, the cholesterol conundrum.
This is really the fundamental question, isn't it? It's so easy to just label things good or bad, but in biochemistry, context is everything. So what exactly is this molecule, and why does our body go to all the trouble of making it?
At its heart, cholesterol is a type of lipid called an animal sterol. And its job description? Well, it's pretty impressive. It provides structural integrity to every single cell membrane in your body. Seriously, without it, our cells would be all flimsy and just fall apart. It's also the starting material for making essentials like bile acids for digestion, critical steroid hormones like cortisol and testosterone, and even vitamin D.
So where do we get all this cholesterol? You might think it's all from the food we eat, but take a look at this. Only about 1/3 of it actually comes from our diet. The huge majority, a full 2/3, is homemade, right inside our own bodies. Our liver is the main factory, but the intestine and other tissues definitely pitch in.
And that leads us perfectly into our second section. How exactly does the body build this complex steroid? Let's take a look at the factory assembly line.
Okay, this is just incredible biochemical efficiency. The body takes acetyl-CoA, this simple 2-carbon molecule that's basically a universal building block you get from breaking down fats, sugars, and proteins, and uses it to build the entire complex 27-carbon structure of cholesterol. Amazing! So this assembly line has 5 major stations. It starts with those simple acetyl-CoA units. First, they're pieced together into an intermediate called HMG-CoA. From there, they're converted into something called mevalonate. Mevalonate is then used to create these little 5-carbon building blocks, kind of like Legos. These are snapped together to form a long 30-carbon chain called squalene, which is then folded up and tailored into the final cholesterol molecule. Now, out of all those steps, this is the one you really need to remember. The conversion of HMG-CoA to mevalonate is what we call the rate-limiting step. Think of it as the main bottleneck on the whole assembly line. The speed of this one reaction basically determines how fast cholesterol gets made overall.
And because that step is so critical, it's also the main target for regulation. This brings us to our third section, the metabolic control panel, where we'll see how the body keeps production in check.
So, who's the manager of this factory bottleneck? It's an enzyme called HMG-CoA reductase. You should think of this enzyme as the master switch. By controlling this one single enzyme, the body can precisely dial its entire cholesterol production up or down whenever it needs to.
So how does the body flip this switch? Well, it uses 3 main methods. First, there's feedback inhibition. When cholesterol levels get high, the cholesterol itself basically tells the cell, hey, we have enough, stop making the enzyme. Second, hormones act like signals from headquarters. Insulin, which signals a fed state with plenty of energy, turns the enzyme on. Glucagon, which signals a fasting state, turns it off to save resources. And third, and this is so crucial for medicine, drug inhibition. This enzyme is the precise target of statin drugs. They're so effective because they literally block the enzyme right at that master switch, slowing the whole production line way down.
Okay, so we've made the cholesterol, but how does it get to where it needs to go? I mean, cholesterol is a lipid, it's fatty, so it doesn't just dissolve in our watery blood. It needs a delivery service. This brings us to Section 4, a tale of 2 transporters.
Cholesterol gets packaged into these particles called lipoproteins. The 2 most famous ones are LDL and HDL. LDL, or low-density lipoprotein, is the delivery truck. It takes cholesterol from the liver out to all the other tissues that need it. HDL, or high-density lipoprotein, is the cleanup crew. It does something called reverse cholesterol transport, which means it collects excess cholesterol from the tissues and brings it all the way back to the liver for disposal. This is exactly why high LDL is risky and high HDL is a good thing. The literature really doesn't mince words on this, and I think this phrasing just illustrates the point perfectly. LDL can be the lethally dangerous lipoprotein, because if you have too much of it, it can lead to cholesterol building up in your arteries. And HDL is the highly desirable lipoprotein, because it's actively working to stop that from happening.
So what happens when HDL brings all that extra cholesterol back to the liver? This takes us to our final section, cholesterol's final fates.
Once it's back in the liver or in other specialized tissues, cholesterol basically has three main destinies. The main way we get rid of any excess is by converting it into bile acids, which help with digestion. But it's also valuable raw material, used to build all of our steroid hormones. And in a pretty cool twist, an intermediate from its production line can be sent to the skin and, with a little help from sunlight, get converted into vitamin D. Okay, this is a really crucial point. Unlike fats or sugars, we can't just burn cholesterol for energy. That stable steroid ring structure, our enzymes just can't break it down. The only way to get it out of the body is to convert it to bile acids and excrete it. This is what makes that HDL-driven return trip to the liver so incredibly vital for keeping things in balance.
And here's a quick clinical connection for you. Think about it. What happens if there's way too much cholesterol being sent into the bile, or maybe not enough bile salts to keep it all dissolved? Well, that insoluble cholesterol starts to precipitate out and form crystals. And over time, these can grow into cholesterol gallstones. That's a condition called cholelithiasis.
So let's just quickly recap the whole life cycle we followed. We start with simple acetyl-CoA. We go through that key regulated step at mevalonate to build squalene and then cholesterol, which is then used for our cell membranes or converted into bile acids, hormones, or vitamin D.
All right, time for a quick quiz. Based on everything we've just covered, which key regulatory enzyme is the target for statin drugs? If you're thinking HMG-CoA reductase, you are absolutely right. Nicely done.
You know, when you boil it all down, the story of cholesterol is really a story of balance. It's this constant, finely tuned dance between making it, shipping it out, bringing it back, and getting rid of the excess. And it's when any part of that system gets out of whack that problems can start to happen.
And I'll leave you with this final thought to ponder. We've seen that our liver is a major cholesterol factory, right? This means that even if you have a perfect diet, your body is still making a significant amount on its own. It really highlights why the transport systems, LDL and especially HDL, and the excretion pathways are every bit as critical to our health as the cholesterol we eat. It's not just about what comes in, it's about how well your body manages what's already there.